Michael, we are live. How are you today?
I am super duper, Martin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great as well. Thank you very much. Super happy to be here on this live together. It's really gonna be super.
So, so am I. Let's get right to it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to AGTP Daily. We go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to discuss the most important tech stories in the United States. Today's Friday, the 8th of May, 2026. Let's get right to it. I want to talk about Anthropic and SpaceX announcing a partnership. We'll get into that. Anthropic, remember, after a couple of weeks ago going, we don't want to raise any more money. Now they're considering raising $50 billion. We'll talk about the valuation later. And not to give all the news, not to give all the news air to Anthropic, OpenAI is rolling out GPT-5.5-Cyber, and that's actually really important as well. How does that sound, Martin?
That sounds like a great plan for this live, Michael. Love it.
Okay, so let's do this. I want to give some details first about Anthropic and SpaceX, and then maybe talk about like what the implications are, if that's okay.
Let's do that.
So Anthropic, and I think this is interesting from the beginning, but let's not get into that. Anthropic has signed a major compute agreement with SpaceX and XAI. And frankly, that company now I believe is called SpaceX AI, whatever, to use all of Colossus One's compute capacity in Memphis, Tennessee. That's more than 300 megawatts and over 220,000 NVIDIA GPUs, including their best ones, the H100s, the H200s, and the GB200 accelerators. Okay, more detail here. Anthropic also says this capacity will come. Remember, we talked a lot, Martin, about how there's a lot of planned data centers, but not a lot of ones actually getting built and implemented. Yeah, but this one, Anthropic says this capacity will come online within the month and will directly improve Claude Pro. This is what they're saying. Yeah, Claude Max, Claude Code, and Claude Opus API availability. And more details. It immediately doubled Claude Code 5-hour rate limits. This is something you should know about, and maybe you can comment on this as well. For Pro, Max, Team, and seat-based enterprise plans. Also removed peak hour reductions for Pro and Max, and raised Opus API rate limits. This is interesting to me, right? Because, and we'll get to that in a second. I want to give more details. But you do all that type of coding. You build agents. You're doing all this stuff on a day-to-day basis. That impacts you. I read about it. So I can't feel it in the same way you do. Like, I don't care. I care because I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
But you can feel it. Let me just give us some more context, if that's okay. Yeah.
Yes. Let's do that.
So one of the reasons why this is important is because compute has become a real bottleneck in this frontier AI space, right? Anthropic has already had enormous infrastructure commitments, up to 5 gigawatts with Amazon, more than $100 billion committed to AWS over the next 10 years, and expanded their Google TPU usage worth tens of billions of dollars and well over a gigawatt in 2026, plus some other small things, yeah? Now, I want to get into, so I wanted to get the details out there so everybody can get a sense of like what's happening, and then we can talk about why it matters that this is happening, okay? So let me give a little bit of an opinion here, and then you can jump in as well, yeah? Is that cool?
Yes, go ahead.
So one of the interesting things to me about this is not even the technical side of it, it's the strategic side of it. Why is that? Well, XAI is a thing. And it's part of this infrastructure. So Anthropic is literally renting infrastructure from an Elon Musk controlled AI competitor ecosystem. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, Martin. I think you put up a chart that showed like where XAI stood in the pantheon of usage among these frontier AI companies. And it was pretty low down.
Super low, yeah.
Right, so it competes with them, but it competes in the same way that like a Ford Mustang competes with like an F1 car.
On a racetrack, yeah.
On a racetrack. Like, they're both going fast, but one of them is going way faster.
Way faster, yeah.
If that's fair to say, right? So it's not like XAI is nothing, but it's kind of not at the same level, right? So even XAI's own post frames Colossus as frontier scale training, fine tuning, all this other stuff that seems like it should be really important. But it's interesting that like, is it really competitive or are they partnering? What does it really mean? And one of the other things that they talked about, and you and I were joking about this before we went live, is that there is a speculative piece in this about orbital compute. Right. And we did do some stuff on a little bit of the controversy, I think in a small town in Pennsylvania last week, where there's some real pushback about these terrestrial data centers.
Yes.
You know, because they create a little bit of pollution, but they also create some serious noise pollution as well. And while Anthropic has expressed some interest in partnering on multiple gigawatts in orbital AI compute capacity. It's not the same thing as having this like deployment plan. And also Colossus One, like they said, is meant to open this month, whatever this month means. So like, let's say in the next 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
Anyway,
yes, yes, yes,
go
yes.
ahead. Did you want to jump in and say something?
So, first of all, thank you very much for the summary. Super interesting. First of all, yeah, I wanted to jump in regarding the cloud limit because it's true. They
Yeah.
announced, I think, that two days ago, at the same time when they did the announcement of the partnership, they said, "Hey, we do this partnership. We got so much more compute power. Like it's amazing." And we double the 5 hour limit, and also that we raise the rate limit of the API. When I saw that, I was so happy, my God.
But
It was.
what are these limits? Can you just explain to
Yeah.
people, like, again, for people that use it and do what you do, they'll know what these limits mean. But
Just for
like,
everyone,
I
yeah.
peripherally understand.
Hmm.
But a lot of I'm guessing that a lot of the viewers and a lot of the listeners aren't coding per se in the same way.
That's
Why do the
correct.
limits matter? And do you bump up against them when you're doing your work?
Yes. So let me explain how it works. So basically, when you want to access this frontier model, okay,
Yep.
whether it's OpenAI, whether it's Claude, and also it works as well on the other models like Queen, Minimax, and all of them. If you don't host them locally on your machine, you can also
Mhm.
access them through the API. And so for all the models, when you want to use them not via the chat interface like chat GPT, for example, if you want to
Right.
use them in your own application, in your own, in your own Cloud, Open Cloud, for example, or your own theme that you have built by yourself, then you need to use their API or the subscription plan that they offer to you. Okay. And these companies like OpenAI or Anthropic, they throttle you. They don't let you use as much as you want. Okay, even on the API. So on the API, you pay per token. So basically, like, okay, you use that many token, and then they send you a bill, and they say, okay, that's how you have to pay.
Mhm.
So which means normally you should be able to use a lot of tokens, right? And maybe like as much as you want because you just pay for it, but that's not the case. Okay, like they throttle you, when you reach some very high level, they start to throttle you and to not give you the compute power that you ask for,
But
basically.
but can you still run stuff, or is it just run
No,
super
it doesn't
slowly?
work.
So you just
No,
get shut down.
yeah, you just get either completely shut down, or it just slow down drastically, or they don't give you access to the frontier model. They give you access to GPT 5.4, for example. So like
Uh,
you go to the next one. Okay, so I
yeah.
think this is a way for them to control how much compute you use, and so then it prevents impacting the entire user base, right? So like if you
Yeah.
use too much compute, then it doesn't slow down or even crash for everybody else. Basically, they just throttle you. Okay,
Yep.
so that's how it works on the API side. Then on the subscription side, so for example, if you have a Cloud Pro plan, a Max plan, or the OpenAI also paid subscription plan, then you have like the $20 plan, the $100 plan, and the $200 plans. So which
Mhm.
means you don't pay for the API cost, you don't pay per token per se. You have a limitation. Basically, you have a weekly limit in the number of tokens that you can use, and you have a 5 hour window limit as well on the number of tokens that you can use. Okay,
It seems.
so
Can I just jump in for a second?
yes.
I want to get back to this, but it just seems weird to me that, like, with all this power and with all this compute, that like there's a five. And how do they, like? Does the 5 hour window does it start like? Do you know what I mean? Like when you log in to start working, it's like, from then on there's 5 hours, or can you do an hour here, an hour there, and do you know what I
No,
mean?
it's 5 hours that starts as soon as you eat your first token,
Token.
right? And same for the week. Okay, so for example, if my first token is started on Monday at 8 a.m., then I have 1 week until Monday 8 a.m., like 7:59 the week after. Okay, and that's
Yeah.
the same for the 5 hours window. So that's 8 to 1 p.m., then 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., and so on. Okay, and so it always starts when you eat your first token, but right now
Got it.
with AI agents, we run 24/7. You just run all the time, basically, right? So the first token is really, really fast. But for people who don't run agents 24/7, and for example, we just chat with the agents, or we just do one thing by one thing. And so, for example, when they sleep, then they can have like 2 windows of 5 hours that are completely unused, right? That's a possibility. So then when you pay for the pro plan, you have a small limit. When you pay for the $100 plan, you have higher limits, and when you pay for the $200 plan, you have much higher limits. That's basically how it works. And so what Anthropic did was they said we are going to increase the limit on the 5-hour window. When I saw that, I was so happy, because I was like, great, we are going to be able to run twice more agents. It's going to be super cool. We are going to be able to do much more stuff.
But can I just jump in again? One of the things you said was you can run agents 24/7, but then where does the 5-hour limit come into play when you're running agents 24/7?
So it means that in any particular set of 5 hours, for example, you can't use more than 50,000 tokens. That's it.
So those two things are combined then. You
Yeah,
can do more than
that's
5 hours, but you
exactly.
can't use more than this number of tokens.
Yes. So for example, it can be like a 1 million token during a week, and 50,000 token during a 5-hour period of time.
Got it. Okay.
And that's it. Okay. But yeah, these two limits work together at any given time. Okay. And also something important is that Anthropic or OpenAI, they don't tell you how much token you have in your limits, and it fluctuates. Okay, so which means
come on, that's not fair.
So yeah, it's super annoying, right? It's really annoying, because you have no idea of like actually what is your limits, and when it's peak usage, or when Anthropic, for example, last month they had plenty of downtime and all of these things, they put the limit down. So they reduce the limit for everyone, so you hit your limit faster, even though you pay for the same price. So which means they don't tell you you're gonna have access to that many tokens. They just tell you you are going to have access to some tokens for 5 hours and for weekly. Okay.
Yeah.
But you have these two limitations. So which means when you work, like let's say for example they give you like a 50,000 tokens per 5 hours window, which means once you hit that, it stops. It doesn't work. Okay, you have no other solution than switching to the API, which is pay more. Okay, so you can keep working, but you have to pay for the API. And now it gets way more expensive. Okay, so that's the same for the weekly limits. Okay, so for example, you can never hit your 5 hours limit, but you can hit your weekly limit. Let's say it's from Monday 8 a.m. to the next Monday 7:59. If you hit your weekly limit on the Friday at noon, you're done. You have to pay for the API
weekend, then.
Until Monday. You have to pay for the API. Okay, so you have to pay for extra usage. Okay, so that's how it works. And plus, because it fluctuates, it's a little bit annoying, right? Because you never really know what you can do. But when Anthropic said we are going to raise the limit of the 5 hours window and we're gonna double it, and they also said we are going to increase the limit on the API as well. So which means even if you use the API, you can use more right now. If you use and the 5 hours limit is going to go up. And they also said they are going to remove what's the one? They were putting a markup during peak hours. Morning time.
They were doing like surge pricing.
Yes, they were doing surge pricing. So let's say you have a 50,000 token limit per 5 hour. And in normal time, you just use the normal price. Then during peak hours, you are for example using twice more tokens, right? Like you are paying twice more. So you are hitting your limits, both the 5 hours and the weekly quota much faster. Okay, so they remove surge pricing as well. So this is good. This is good, and that's actually, Michael, the only thing that matters here, because when they said that they increase the 5 hour limit window, once again, I was so happy, but they didn't increase the weekly limit. So at the end of the day, you still have the same number of token per week, right? And when I saw that, I was so sad because I was like, actually, at the end of the day, we can just do the same thing. We don't have any more tokens into our plan because the weekly limit doesn't change. The only thing that's changed is the likelihood to hit our 5 hours limit
Right. So this
now
seems
is
is so
less.
this like more of a marketing thing than an actual technical thing, because if you don't have more, like if they doubled the number of hours you could use this to 10, but then didn't double the number of tokens you can use, then what's the big deal? Maybe it just means you work slower. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It means like once again, let's take the example of 50,000 token per 5 hours and 1 million token per week, right?
Right, right.
Then now you have 100,000 token per 5 hours, so you can do more during this period of time, but you still have 1 million token per week, right? So you still need to hand to work through that, right? So at the end of the day, but it was not clear, and I think a lot of people were very confused and very disappointed because of that, and me included. When I
Me
first
included.
read the announcement, I was like, great, I have twice more token, I can do twice more, it's amazing. And then I saw that the weekly limit actually did not change. I was like, is there a problem? Is there like something wrong? Then I went back to the announcement and I was like, oh, they just increased the 5 hours. I mean, not the weekly limit. So nothing changed actually.
Wow. But what does it mean though? Because it must mean that so we talk a lot about how the data centers themselves are, they're like power constrained and they're water constrained and all these other things. But what you're really telling me is that these data centers, no matter how like that the whole AI infrastructure itself is more compute constrained than anything else, right? Because even if they're putting on, what is it, 300
Exactly.
megawatts, and it's not
Yeah.
in the gigawatt lane, but they're putting on 300 megawatts, it's really big, but it's still not enough to give people more tokens.
No, it is no. And so yeah, you can do more in a shorter period of time. That's the only thing that we have now, basically, right?
Right.
Because they remove surge pricing, it means that we should hit our weekly limit less as well, because now we
Right.
don't pay the extra fine on during these peak hours, right? But that's pretty much it, really. Like there is no other good news for us, unfortunately.
So
Yeah,
is there a load balancing problem here as well? Can I just give you, because it
mhm.
seems to me like there's a utilization issue, not just
Oh,
like a
for sure.
GPU count issue, right? So let's just say if you have like a massive GPU
Mhm,
installation,
mhm.
but it only matters, it seems to me, if you can like route whatever the workloads are that people have across, let's just say, because they're using AWS, we know they're using Trainium here, Google TPUs, and probably even some Azure capacity.
Yeah,
Is there a way for them to be more efficient? I mean, I guess the way they write the software that actually routes all the capacity is going to have to get better
yeah,
over time, right? So that like you don't really care where your stuff is going. You don't know if you're using Colossus One, and you don't really care, but they probably know. They're going to have to get better, not just them, but OpenAI as well, about saying like we need to get more efficient, because maybe all of it goes to Colossus, and then the AWS stuff is just sitting there not doing anything. I mean, it's I'm exaggerating to make a point, but you
oh, for sure,
understand, yeah? Are people
for
thinking
sure.
about this as well?
For sure. I mean, this is exactly the problem that we run into right now. And when you look at things from this lens, right, like from the data center lens, it's actually a miracle that it works for us in Asia, where all of these data centers are in the US, right? Like it means the speed that I'm experiencing Claude must be much lower than somebody who is in California, for example,
If
because we are,
well, or in Tennessee, because if the data centers in
or in
well, definitely
Tennessee.
California, because the latency between California and Tennessee is going to be way better than the
Exactly.
latency between
Exactly.
Asia and Tennessee. Yeah,
Exactly. So the fact that
yeah,
it works globally is actually pretty much a miracle, really, right? Like it is really, really insane, because if you have a website that you host in California and you want to access this in Australia and there is no thing in between, it's gonna be like a few seconds to load your very tiny website.
right.
So now that we can run models of AI like globally like this, it is definitely very, very impressive. But so which means yes, which means to your question, they will need much more data centers and much more data centers globally as well, right? Like to be much closer to the end users. I don't know how the CDN can play a role into that, because the CDN, what they do is that they cache the information at the edge, but
Mm,
here
mm,
there is
mm.
inference, right? So there's no caching. That's that's
Yeah, I don't
that's
think it's possible to cache inference, right?
so, I mean, I'm sure Cloudflare, Akamai, Fastly, they're working on that right
For
now. That's
sure,
a huge opportunity, right?
for
Like,
sure,
like
for sure. Well, because think
everybody,
about the I don't even want to say
yeah,
spike, but the surge in the amount of
oh,
calls that are going
for sure,
to data centers globally is just going to be
yeah,
huge, right? Because like again, 6 months ago, none of this stuff really
yeah,
existed at scale. And
Exactly.
now, even if you put on a 300 megawatt brand new data center, Colossus One, there's also a Colossus Two, by the way, which is one
Okay.
of the reasons why SpaceX AI felt comfortable enough to give Colossus One all to Anthropic, is because, well, we got Colossus Two. And to be fair, the XAI stuff is not as taxed and is used,
Okay.
right, from a compute standpoint, as because XAI is just not as big. They're not getting as many inference calls or as many chip calls as the Anthropic stuff is. Yeah.
You say that I think this is a super great business case and a proof that right
That
now everybody who is investing in data centers has a plan B. Because I'm sure for Musk, when he started Colossus 1 and 2, what, 2 or 3 years ago, right? It was
mhm.
not, we are going to rent it to other people. That was not the plan.
No, 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 no,
His
no, no.
plan was HCI is going to be amazing. We are going to get
Right,
so
right,
much
right.
users. We are going to take over the world. We are going to get 2 billion users daily, right?
Daily, exactly.
I'm sure if you check the announcements of Colossus
Everybody in
1 and
Africa is
2,
going to be using just XAI.
because of SpaceX, the demand is going to explode, blah, 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 right? But this didn't happen. And so now it's very, very great because they have a plan B, which is just leasing the data centers to the other guys who need data centers, right? So which means that all the investment that we see from Meta, from AWS, from Qualcomm, from Google, they could end up into this type of situation as well, right? And that's great because it gives them a lot of security in making this massive investment. There is a plan B, which is giving it to somebody else who is going to be better with their AI offering, basically.
So
So,
there's a lot more to talk about here, but I want to comment on what you just said as well, because I want to attach it to something that we've been speaking about over the last few weeks. Remember, we talked about, is there an AI bubble?
yeah,
How can there be?
yes,
How can there be when there simply aren't enough places to process this stuff? And that
yeah,
even if they
good
do
point.
process it, they make the window during which you can actually activate this stuff larger, but they don't give you any more tokens. What it
No.
means is that there's simply not enough capacity out there to handle. And we're going to talk later about potential IPO, right? Or a potential capital raise, sorry, for Anthropic. And you'll see there during that discussion what the run rate is for their, I don't want to talk about it now, but what their annual run rate is. Remember, it was $30 billion before. I don't want to say the number now, but it just means that like people are paying for stuff
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
yeah.
not enough capacity for them, even with all these big data centers coming online, excuse me, to process it in a way that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I th- I think they definitely isn't. Like there's a lot of people who still hit their limit all the time. They don't change the weekly limit, so this is not going to be this is not a problem solved. It's still going to be there, and then people still use the subscription because the API is way too expensive, right? So you have this
Right.
balance, right, between
Mm-hmm.
you enjoy the subscription because you get way more for your money, right? Which is why we pay for the subscription. The API could give us more usage, but it's too expensive. So it's also like a like a weird situation, right? Where you have access to a product that gives you more token than you would normally get through the API cost, right?
Right.
So it's a weird situation. Like I think the subscription is going to go away at some point. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really don't hope that they just forced everybody to run the API.
But they
But
probably will, right? Because it's the best way for them to control the capacity usage
and
because it's more expensive. Yeah.
and also like right now, like for example, like maybe you pay $200 per month on the Claude Max 20 plan, which is like the most expensive one,
Do we
but
know
in
anyone that does
total,
that?
yeah, like us, that's what we do. And if you compare to how much it would cost for the API, I think I saw some numbers matter where it's like 20x.
Yeah,
Like if I
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
if I were like doing the same thing, sorry, the amount of token that they give me through the Claude
API.
Max 20 plan, like
Right,
if I use all the token in the plan and then I convert that into the API cost, it would be like 20, 30x,
right.
right? So which means like they give you a massive discount, right? And that kind of makes no sense, right? So if they still have compute powers now in 6 months, in 2 years, right? They may say, you know what, the guys that we give you like a 20 and 28 discounts, thank you very much, but we are going to give our compute to the API guys, right?
Right. So,
Because they
and let
want
me
to pay.
let me
So
put that into context as well, right? So,
mhm,
Colossus One's 300 megawatt thing is large,
mhm.
but people need to listen carefully. I said megawatts, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anthropic's bigger plan is much larger. They want to do up to 5 gigawatts,
Mhm.
right? So 5 gigawatts is like what is that?
I think
100 times more, 120, 130 times more?
no, 300 times 10 it's 3 gigawatts, so
Yeah,
40
3
times more.
gigawatts. So yeah, so but it's 100 and something times more to get to 5 gigawatts with Amazon. They will also want to have 5 gigawatts with Google.
Mm.
They've paid for $30 billion of Azure capacity, right? And a
Yeah, so it's
$50 billion USA infrastructure investment with Fluidstack. They're just like throwing money around anywhere to get capacity. I
just
just want to make
compute.
that point, right? That while this thing seems large, it's just not enough on its own. Yeah.
It's tiny. Yeah, you're right. Like compared to all the others, to all the other like data centers that you and deal that you just mentioned, like it's super 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 tiny, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it feels big, but it's not. I want to mention a couple of other things if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Because I mentioned this in passing and we joked about it a little bit, right? But like we mentioned the fact that this deal also includes something speculative. This is the idea of expressing interest in putting data centers in space, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Multiple gigawatts of AI compute in space. And what makes this interesting to me, or one of the things that makes it interesting to me, is we talked about this in the context of Star Cloud, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Someone's got to build enough rockets to get this stuff up there, because even the payload, I think for SpaceX's biggest rocket can't have like 15 data centers on it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But SpaceX is the only company right now that has any capacity in rocket space. So this is one of the reasons, again, so this is very strategic from Anthropic's standpoint as well. They kind of want to be partnering with SpaceX because the combination of SpaceX and XAI means that they're working with one of the only companies in the world that has enough or even some rocket capacity, if in fact they actually can figure out how to put stuff in space as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
So
no, yeah, yeah, you're right. It could be step one, right? It could be step one. It could be step one to something much larger down the line. Um, which once again, like completely validates to me like any strategy to invest into compute and data centers right now, right? It's just
exactly.
like it's just what everybody wants, and so the more Anthropic OpenAI grows, even if your own model fail, fine, you can just sell the data centers, right? So you're good.
Yes. And there are a few more pieces to this again.
Okay.
The other thing is SpaceX is literally like weeks away from their IPO,
Hmm. Okay.
and it doesn't hurt them at all, right? It doesn't hurt them at all to say that SpaceX has like a really concrete customer in
Anthropic.
Anthropic for
Hmm.
one of their biggest, not one, well, Colossus. I mean, it's one of SpaceX's biggest data centers, even though it's not one of the biggest data centers in the world. So if they can show that to investors, it probably helps them, because what are they looking for a valuation on their IPO? It's like 1.75 to $2 trillion. It is hilarious, right? Because I think even
Yeah, it's
Nvidia and
huge.
Apple are like $3 trillion and $4 trillion, and they have
Yeah.
the revenue relationship is just so much different.
Hmm. Hmm.
So just another reason why they would want to do this, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes ton of sense, right? I think that makes ton of sense to if you say that you work with Anthropic plus like with all the trial against OpenAI and all of these things, that it just fuel this narrative very, very nicely, right? So like it fits so perfectly that if in the goal of IPO soon, yeah, that's really nice marketing message for sure.
It is. But again, you and I were talking about this before we went online, These data centers are getting some backlash. I just want to talk about this a little bit more, right? I don't
Yeah,
want to be
yeah.
negative and stuff like that, but there are two other things we need to talk about. There's always going to be this power and permitting risk, and there's already fighting around around Colossus, right?
Hmm.
Because I think it's The Guardian is reporting that they can't use these methane gas turbines that they use around the data centers that are not exempt from air permitting requirements. So think about a methane gas turbine and what kind
Okay.
of output it puts out, right? And you and I were saying that like these things not only make a lot of noise, but they create some level of pollution.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not saying they're going to shut these things dound, but imagine that's just for a 300 megawatt data center. What do you think it's going to be for a 5 gigawatt data center,
Yeah, no, it's true.
which is 100 and something times bigger?
Yeah,
Anyway, go ahead.
and when you say that to me, I was like, you know what? Let's just go have a look at the data center, right?
Yeah,
And
we should
just
go.
to
We
see.
should definitely go to, because there is a data center near where we live. We should definitely go
Yeah.
look at it. It's not small. It's probably as big as Colossus, no? Or a little bit
No, no,
smaller.
no,
No?
no, no. The one that we found, Michael, like the only information that I found, let me just double check because I don't want to be wrong on the number,
Right.
but I think it's crazy, crazy, crazy much smaller. Um, wait. The Bangkok largest data centers. Uh, uh, um. So we have Digital Edge who build a 100 megawatt AI ready campus.
That's
That's
one third the size.
a third. Day one was developing a 1 gigawatt power platform
So
in Chonburi.
3.3 times the size. That's big.
So this one is big.
Yeah.
But today we have, what was the one from Entity Data that we found just before? The one from Entity Data was 12 to 14 megawatts.
Okay, that's small though, right?
So that's, I mean, I, before AI, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's huge.
I was gonna say, I feel like I could put that in my apartment.
Exactly.
Put it in my fridge. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. What are we
Yeah,
doing?
like before AI, maybe it was huge, maybe
Maybe
it
we
was enough
gigantic.
because
Exactly.
when you look at the online infrastructure of Thailand, it's just amazing. It's always fast, it works all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
like it's
Easily.
just crazy good, right? And that's a country with what 70 million people
Yep.
where the population has on average 2 phone per people, right? So it's not
Yeah.
like people are not connected to the
No, no,
internet.
no.
It's wrong,
Mobile phone penetration in Thailand is super high.
is insane, right? And like everything is mobile first. Everything works online. It works all the time. When's the last time your bank crashed or the BTS crashed or something didn't work? Never
Never.
happened in Thailand.
Never. Never. Never.
So as well, like maybe before AI, that was enough. These 20, 50 megawatts data centers, but now, yeah, now the numbers are much, much, much larger, right? So yeah, let's see how it goes. But yeah, maybe we go do a documentary for you guys on the chat. So we go there, we do.
Let's make some B-roll and we'll test the sound. We can't really test the pollution per se, but we can also test like
Yeah.
just how massive it looks, even for something that's only, what is it? You said 12 megawatts or something.
Yeah, yes. It was like 10,000 square meters. Yeah,
Yeah.
10,000 square meters.
Yeah, not small.
So not small, but yeah, not at the scale that we are seeing here, but still, that would be interesting to do have a look.
Yeah, my
Maybe
only
after
worry
the.
here, and then we'll move on to our next topic because I think it's interesting to talk about Anthropic considers raising as much as $50 billion. And I'm going to say the number now to $900 billion valuation. But before we do that, there is a little bit of like supplier conflict risk here, I think.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, Anthropic competes directly with XAI.
Yes.
And even though, again, they're not in the same space, I just think, I don't want to make a value judgment here, but senior management at SpaceX has tended to be slightly mercurial.
Okay.
So you just don't know when this stuff is going to get turned off. I don't think it's that big a risk, but I think people at least need to think about this. And the other thing is that there's what I call this capex circularity risk, right? Where like we talked about this with that joke with the £100, remember? For the €100, where like I pay you, you pay somebody else, and then at the end of the day, the money comes back to me. So is it really growth, or is it really demand, or is it really just like we're all paying each other something, and then at the end of the day, there's no real GDP being really created?
Yes.
So there's a little bit of that, not a lot of that, I think, because I've come down on the side here that this is not a bubble, and that the more people, the louder the voices get that complain it is or could be a bubble, the more convinced I am that it's not. And this gets back to the other thing we spoke about yesterday. Nobody ever talks about like the 1.3 million people being hired. They just talk about the 96,000 people getting fired
All the time.
all the time. And I think it's the same thing here. Everybody wants to complain that like, oh, it's just a bubble, where there's so much investment going on. At the end of the day, the people that are left out of all this investment and all the benefits that are being generated by this investment are just like, well, I guess I missed that. I guess I missed that one too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right?
True. I mean, same as we always say, it's just the fear narrative, right? That is just getting much more click and much more attention, right?
Yeah.
So this is sad, but it's true. But yeah, no, I think it's interesting in a lot of ways. But yeah, 300 megawatts definitely doesn't move much of a needle, right? It's not big, but maybe step one, maybe that's plan B for XAI in case, Anthropic just become 200 times bigger and they need more power, and then you know what, we're just gonna give you our capacity. Maybe it was the plan from day one since Musk, right? Like because he's been planning like these data centers in space and these mass data centers since a while now, right? It's not like
Mhm.
for him, it's not like something like just wake up yesterday and was like, hey guys, we need to do compute for AI, right? No. He's been doing that for a long time, and um and yeah, he has a plan, a big plan.
Yeah, I'm not so worried about it. And I think, as we always say, it's the directionality that matters more than the
Exactly.
size in this case, right? So
Yeah.
that's where I'm going to come down on this thing. Okay, let's talk about Anthropic considers raising as much as $50 billion. Remember, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, where people were literally like knocking down their doors to give them enough money to get them to a valuation that was what OpenAI's last valuation was $852 billion. Yeah.
Yes.
So now what they're saying is they're definitely considering raising as much as $50 billion in new funding with a pre-money valuation target of approximately $900 billion. This is according to the Financial Times. And if they do this, it's going to close within the next 2 months. I feel like these guys at Anthropic are on a roll.
Oh yeah, for sure.
No,
For sure. No, it's absolutely crazy. Yeah. It's absolutely
I mean
crazy.
they've been just think about this. They've been on a fundraising, I don't know,
Spree.
spree. Yes, a great word. In 2025, the company was valued at $61.5 billion.
Oh
It was
wow, yeah.
$183 billion in September and $380 billion literally just like 8 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago in February. When they
When is
raised
their
their
last
last,
one,
what
right?
they raised like $30 billion at a $380
Yeah.
billion valuation. So now it's
Yeah.
going to triple, not triple, but what, 2 point something times. Yeah.
Yeah, but also like they get to this level of valuation with a much lower fundraise than OpenAI. Because OpenAI had to raise 122 billion to get to the $852 billion valuation. Here, and Anthropic raises less than half, right? 50 billion compared to 122 billion for OpenAI, and they get the same level of valuation.
Right.
So even if you combine the 30 billion that they raised 8 weeks ago plus the 50 here, that's a total of 80. We are still at 50% less than OpenAI. So it's still like a huge difference, right?
Well, it's massive. But I want to put this into context as well, Martin. So give me a couple of seconds again to just give some details here.
Go ahead.
At the end of 2025,
Hmm.
the annual run rate for Anthropic's revenue, not projected revenue, but the run rate was $9 billion. Okay.
Go ahead.
And again, in April of 2026, because we talked about this, it went from $9 billion to a $30 billion run rate in April of 2026. And again, that was last month.
Yes.
I'm not going to make you guess. I do like to make you guess, but in this case, I'm not going to make you guess. But annualized revenue is now nearing $45 billion per the Financial Times.
Wow, 45. It reached 50% in like a month.
In a month.
Oh, wow.
In a month.
I think like all of that is the adoption of Claude Code. Like Claude Code is just a massive game changer. It's a massive game changer into enterprises, and they are on the road, right? Like they have the momentum right now, right? Like they have the momentum. They did this enterprises deal, but like as we say, like in the last few days, Michael, like I think it's just the beginning, you know? Like when we see the marketing and sales strategy of Anthropic, and they have only 1,000 companies who spend $1 million per year as of 2 months ago, right? But they start working with FIS and the PE company, like they
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
double or triple very quickly the number of companies that spend more than $1 million per year in Anthropic's products, right? I really believe that that's what they are building right now, and I wouldn't be surprised that their revenue just like explodes, but like completely like skyrocket because their enterprise offering works. That works, and this is a really good product that they have, and there they have such a massive competitive advantage. Nobody else is even close to what they are doing,
Right.
and they are doing sales and marketing in a really good way. So they have really like the both, right? They have really the two things: great product plus great distribution, and that's scalable. I think it's going to just keep rising and keep rising and keep rising. I think we are not ready for that.
So I don't think we're ready for it either. I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, now that we've seen it go from 9 to
to
30
45.
to 45 in like in like less than a month, or maybe in a
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
I think we're ready. Like, I think the market would be disappointed if it was only just like 60 next month. You know what I mean? But here's,
But okay,
sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No. I wanted to speak about something else. Go ahead.
So you sent me a video today,
Hmm.
and again, I want to use this, right, from Boris Cherney, who's the guy who helped develop in what
Claude
they
Code.
called at the time Anthropic Labs, right?
Yes. Yes.
He said they put a really small team. You watched the video, but just to explain to people who may not have seen it, if you haven't, this was at something that Sequoia put together.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen this video, you should go watch it. Maybe we should put that in the show notes as well, because I thought it
Yeah.
was really interesting what he said. This was, and Martin, you sort of not, he didn't even hint at this, but you said this explicitly a couple of months ago. When they built these large models, they weren't really sure what people were going to use them for.
Yes. Yes. I really believe that.
It almost has to be, because
Yeah.
he actually admitted this today.
Yeah.
Well, not, he didn't admit it today, but he admitted it in this video. He was like, we went into the lab, and I just thought, I don't know. He said that Claude Code was created by accident. Those were his words.
And they didn't have any product market fit for the first 6 months, which means they knew nothing, that they had no use case, they didn't know how to use it for like the first 6 months, right? They were just
Right.
working on this thing that is going to become something maybe at some point.
Right. But, and he also said the first iteration of this thing was terrible. The second one
Yeah.
wasn't much better. The third one was much. And then once they started like rolling stuff out, he was like, now it's really, really good. And he did mention in this video. So one of the other things that was interesting was he asked people in the room, maybe there were like 100 people in the room. I can't remember.
Mhm.
How many people use Claude Code to code? Everybody raised their hand. Everybody.
Mhm.
And then he went through things like what percentage you use it for. It was like 50-50 for most people, I think, at the end of the day. But the point is that this is one of their biggest revenue generators, and it was created by accident. And I think he's exaggerating a little bit, right? Because it didn't just like make itself. But the other interesting thing that he said was that every line of code now that gets written inside of Anthropic gets written by Claude.
Yes.
So think about the implication of that. Because he said when they first started using it, they would write some code blocks, then somebody would have to check it, and then he would have to fix it, and then the fixing became less and less and less. And he said now it just writes code blocks and nobody has to fix anything.
Yes. This is, I mean, but also to add a little bit to that,
Go for it.
this only worked since last month, since 6 months ago. It only started to work in November to December last year, where we got access to Opus 4.6, sorry, Opus 4 point something, right? Like in
4.5, I think it was, but yeah.
something like that, and the GPT also like latest model like 5.2 or 5.3. These are the first model that have been able to really write code without too much fixing behind that, right? And so that's why it's completely accelerated from that point, because if you remove the review process after everything you do, then all of a sudden everything just gets much faster, right?
Yeah.
So here we were like really two things happening at the same time. You had the model getting better, so we need to fix what they do less, and even not fix what they do at all, right? Which is crazy, but now it's possible. And the other thing that's happening is that then we develop the AI agentic platforms as well, like Claude Code, that are actually able to not only code but also like do stuff directly, act on things, modify your files, your website files, your application files, and all of these things. So when you combine these two things together, it's so powerful, because then what do? You run plenty of agents in parallel, and now you can like completely augment yourself and do tons of stuff that you were just not able to do before, right? And also in this interview that Boris does at Sequoia, he says at night he has thousands of AI agents that works. Thousands, my girl. I was like, what?
His token costs are probably lower than yours, though, right?
So yes, yeah. Obviously, he doesn't pay the bill because he works at Anthropic. He's very lucky for that. But I have 8 that runs 24/7. 8, yes, thousands, right? Like I was like, wow, the gap between like the amount of output that he's able to do and the amount of output that I'm able to do is massive. And I consider myself maybe like on the upper side of the users of AI, right? So
For sure.
but there is still like a massive gap with the top power users. And yes, and so this like all of this thing has been doable since really 6 months, really. Like that's new. And that's where Anthropic had the largest growth, right? Like from
Yeah.
9 billion to 30 to 45. And I think that's just the beginning because it works.
So
And now
so
everybody can use it.
so you make a really good point, and I want to follow on. I want to build on that
Mhm,
for a second.
mhm,
Claude Code again, which is something that is now super duper powerful, right? Anthropic itself writes all their code with it. It's their largest revenue generator, and the market loves it, right?
yes, it's
And it's
huge.
generating revenue like it grew 50% in the last month.
Crazy.
So you have to ask yourself a few questions here. What other products are buried inside the model that they have not released yet or they haven't built yet? And I think the first indication of this is the stuff we talked about yesterday, the agents for financial services,
Mhm, mhm,
right? We know that they're already working with some of the biggest financial services firms in the world. We also know that they have that PE program.
mhm, mhm.
And those PE companies are by definition financial services firms. They have thousands of companies into which they invest, but then they have thousands of more into which they will want to invest. They're going to use these financial services tools along to turbocharge their analysts to do it. So people are going to pay for that too. But what else is buried inside the model that can have the same kind of explosive growth?
Yeah.
But then think about the implications of what we were talking about before with the data centers. Like this is not a vicious circle.
Mhm. No,
This
no,
is
it's
a
a
virtuous circle,
it's a virtual circle for sure. For sure. But
right?
also like to give them credit. I don't think Claude Code, when it started, let's say 6, 7, 8 months ago, the idea was agent AI. I don't think it was. Like they
No, 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 no. It was just
took
for coding.
exactly. It was like a coding assistant that get better and better and better, more like a cursor type of thing. And then when OpenClaw started to get tons of traction, they completely developed Claude Code into a fully agentic platform. And that was fast. That was
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
really,
yeah.
really fast. Do you remember like in back in March, I think we were like talking about all the new features that Claude Code was releasing in the agentic AI space, like
Yep.
constantly, right? Like every 3 days there was something big, something new. And they have p- maybe not pivoted, but maybe have adapted themselves to the market really, really, really quickly and at a pace that no one else has been able to match, right? Like no one
Right.
has been able to build. I mean, OpenClaw was there, all right. So
Yeah, yeah.
they had the head start. They had the head start, but we can talk about the management of the platform if you want. But it's really a big question of like why they didn't scale this up. But like very quickly Claude Code what's the word? They have like fill the gap, like they had just catch up uh,
Mm-mm-mm.
with OpenClaw, and now they are the number one agentic platform, right? And so that's why I think that it's to their credit as well. This growth also comes from their adaptability
Yeah.
to the environment.
And I guess the point that I was trying to make is that
Mm,
the bulk of their revenue comes from one product that was created inside that labs business. And Boris said kind of in passing, and I want to point this out if you haven't watched the video,
mhm,
that they disbanded the lab once this product rolled out. But
mm.
now they're looking at the success of the revenue growth inside of this one product, yeah?
Yeah,
And they put more people back into the lab and said, what else can we come up with? My guess is that some of this agentic stuff that they built is part of that. But I just want to make this point again is what if they roll out 2 or 3 more products that start generating revenue at the same level that this thing has?
yeah.
Then is it even valued close to properly? Because again, if they're doing $100 billion of revenue,
Oh, I think it's trending to be.
well, then it's 10 times revs to get to a trillion.
Yeah.
So it could be 25 times revenues, which would make it 2.5 trillion.
Mm. No,
And
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah.
did you understand the point that I'm making?
Yeah.
And let me just do a really quick.
Yeah, so they no, yeah, definitely. I don't know like what's the potential growth for them, right? Like because like how many already like Fortune 500 companies are using Cloud Code at their maximum because everybody complained that they are token matching, they spend their entire budget and all of that. Like what's the what's the size of the market that's left.
Right.
But my guess is that it's massive. It's massive. It's
Massive.
massive. I
Yeah.
don't think in Europe or
No.
in Asia there is that much penetration yet, right? Maybe there's some penetration in the US, but outside of the tech bubble, financial services, insurance, health, all of this, I think the adoption is still super, super small.
It is. And I mean, the ancillary stuff or the supplementary stuff that's related to what's going on here, like we could spend hours talking about like what needs to happen to companies' data for them to actually be optimized to use all this stuff,
So
which means that data companies then are going to make more money. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think the conversation last night with Jan was super interesting,
That's why I
right?
thought about it,
Yeah.
right? Because all the stuff that he does is going to explode now if the stuff that Anthropic is doing is exploding, right?
So yes and no. Yes and no. And actually, maybe, Michael, maybe what Jan is doing could be the only threat to what Entropy is doing. Let me explain.
Synthetic data creation.
No, 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 no. He said something else besides that.
Oh, you mean building vertical models?
Building vertical models and training their own models themselves.
Yeah,
Because
fair
he
enough.
said the large enterprises with whom we work, they don't necessarily want to send their data to OpenAI or to Anthropic. They want to keep it in-house, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he
yeah.
said as well that now, like that's something that we've been saying on the show like constantly in the last few months, an open source model that is 6 months old now starts to be okay, right?
Yeah, he did say that
Because
actually. Yeah,
because
it's a
six
good
months
point.
ago at Opus 4.4, it was good already, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you remove all the cost of using Opus 4.7, plus you can fine tune your model with your data, now you have something really, really powerful, right? And this is a really different way of using AI, right? And this makes ton of sense to me. Like as a client, I would consider this option very seriously. And
Can I give
actually,
you, can I
yeah,
give you a counter to that?
yes, tell me.
Do you mind?
No, please, please, please. Let's have a debate.
So I think what you're saying is right, but how it gets affected, I think, is going to be even more interesting.
Mhm, mhm.
Let's just use the PE example that we had
Yeah.
before, the private equity companies. What's going to happen? Well, if it gets affected the same way, the way that Anthropic hopes, and frankly, OpenAI is doing the same thing, just with different consultants,
Yes.
they're going to have engineers embedded inside of these companies.
Mm.
So because their core competence is, let's just say, selling widgets or doing insurance, their core competence is not building their own sort of frontier models, even if they're on-prem and they're not getting sent out to the cloud to work with OpenAI or to work with Anthropic. So what's going to happen? One of the other things he said, which was actually it was okay, we passed over, it was very nuanced, was one of the reasons why those embedded people are really interesting is because they then get to send tasks back to OpenAI or back
Yes.
to
Yes.
Anthropic. And one of those tasks, I believe, is going to be, can you just build a model for us
Mm.
that we can use here that doesn't have to send information back out to you, but you build it for us because we don't know how to build that ourselves. And since the engineers are already there and they want to create that stickiness, that I think is a way that this is going to get affected.
So maybe that's one of the next product that Anthropic launch. A easy model builder.
Exactly.
Something that lets you build your own model using synthetic data or
So
any of your
and that's what I meant when I said
data.
what other products are buried
Yes.
inside the model, and that is the model
Yeah.
building a model for you.
Yeah, a model that builds a model for you, and then I don't know, maybe it's small language model that are really good at doing one task,
Yep.
vertical models,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or as you mentioned, a model that you host yourself, that just for you, so then there is no data going back
To the cloud.
to the cloud and to the main company, right? So
Exactly.
that could be, to me, that's the only threat to what Anthropic or OpenAI are doing right now, because from a tech side, it makes sense, right? Then I think there's tons of problems, because, if you just get the API to Claude, it works like in 2 minutes, right? It just works.
Yeah, yeah.
But building your own model, fine tuning, getting data, that's a completely different story, right? Like in
Mhm.
terms of tech. So there is challenges in implementing this oversight of the possibility, but from a tech standpoint, I think it makes sense. So that's why maybe that's the next product for Anthropic, if they want to do something like that. But to me, that's the only threat that they have. Just people building their own stuff. We without them.
Understood.
But Yeah.
So in that vein, let's move on to our next topic, right? Because OpenAI, we don't want to give all the all the flowers to Anthropic tonight. But OpenAI is rolling out a specific model, right? They're rolling out GPT 5.5 Cyber. And again, let me
Yes.
do what I did at the beginning. I want to give some information on this, right? So they're positioning GPT 5.5 and 5.5 Cyber. Even after yelling and screaming, I will say metaphorically at Anthropic for restricting access to Mythos or Mythos or however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah.
They're rolling this out as a controlled access cyber defense capability rather than a generally available offensive security model. So they're doing the same thing. Okay. And they have a name for this program. It's Trusted Access for Cyber program, reduces refusals for defenders working on legitimate tasks such as vulnerability, malware analysis, reverse engineering, all this kind of stuff, right? While still restricting malicious workflows like stealing information, persistence, malware deployment, or exploitation of third-party systems. And OpenAI says that GPT 5.5 Cyber is being rolled out in limited preview for specialized workflows, especially for critical infrastructure defense. But here's what's really interesting about it. Let me give a little bit more information, and then we can talk about its significance. Yeah.
Yes.
And that is the UK AI Security Institute. That's actually they call it the AISI. Evaluation is really important here. AISI says GPT 5.5 is one of the strongest cyber models it has ever tested, and the second model to complete one of its multi-step cyber attack simulations end to end after Mythos. But on AISI's expert level advanced cyber task, GPT scored 71.4 compared with 68.6 for Mythos. There's a margin of error there too, but the margin of error is not that far away from each one of them. So GPT actually scored better. And that's actually really interesting. And again, just to put it into context, Claude Opus 4.7, so the pre-Mythos model, scored 48.6.
Oh wow, okay, so it's much better, huge
Much,
improvement.
much better, right?
Oh wow.
So again, OpenAI criticized Anthropic for restricting Claude's Mythos access, but now it's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's putting it behind its trusted defender gate. And its model is now scoring better than Mythos, which is interesting. But again, Mythos was released, whatever that means, like a month ago. So who knows where it stands today, right?
And who knows as well, like how much of that is pure marketing and how much of that is just the truth, right? Like
Well,
with
no,
with
the numbers
Anthropic.
are based on the test that AISI has
Yeah.
done. So that has nothing to do with marketing.
Okay.
But you can see the increase in skill level or in effectiveness because Claude Opus 4.7 was a pretty good model. 48.6% it scored on the AISI test. And even what is it, GPT 5.4 scored 52.4. So, and again, there's a margin of error here. It's not worth talking about because they're not that much different for each one of these models. But the GPT stuff is scoring better in this cyber thing kind of across the board than the Anthropic stuff. And this is what you and I were talking about again offline. It's like in our head, we have this perception, at least I do, that Anthropic is just way better technically because there's so much noise around what Sam Altman as a person is doing
It's true.
rather than what OpenAI as a company, as an engineering skill set is doing.
I think this is the story here. I think this is the story because it looks like the entire dialogue, the entire discussion around OpenAI has completely shifted from the product and the tech itself. Now we are debating other stuff. We are talking about Sam Altman, all the problem that he has. We're talking about the trial, talking about all of these things. We have completely forgotten that OpenAI is actually great at making
It's
AI.
a great company with great tech. Like people are worried here. They're like, they say things like, I don't know, Dario Amodei has a corgi and Sam Altman has a Great Dane. Which
Yeah.
dog is better? And you're like, none of this matters, but that's what people are talking about, kind of thing.
Exactly. And when we see this type of thing, it really reminds me that, okay, we got to be super careful about our own bias just because of the
Yeah,
discussion
exactly.
and because of the information that we see online, the information that we feed ourselves with as well. And we are the first one, Michael, right? Like, I mean, we are both guilty of that, I think, right?
Definitely.
Of like following as well as the news and the narration, and it really impacts how we perceive these companies. But I really think that if you remove all the drama and all this layer of like craziness around Sam Altman and the management of OpenAI, and you go one step below that, you go talk to the engineer, you go talk to the product team, they are absolutely amazing. They are
They
top
must be
notch,
insanely great, right?
and they are absolutely like they are the best engineers in the world, just like Anthropic as well are the best engineer in the world, right? Like the two
Right.
teams are probably really, really similar in terms of capabilities, right? But yeah, I think OpenAI really needs to refocus the narration on the product, right? Just like and Anthropic does. We never see anything outside of the product and the capabilities and the AI that Claude can do. Where in OpenAI we always talk about other stuff, right?
Right,
So
right, right. That's why I use the dog
yeah,
example. It's just like
exactly.
completely unrelated, and it's
Yeah,
a new judgment as to which dog is, and this is not a real thing. But this is, if you step back a little bit, this is kind
yeah,
of what the argument sounds like, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it sounds a little bit nonsensical, but I think at the end of the day, you've got to forget your biases and say, look, the technical teams here are both super duper strong. You can argue about the focus, right? The senior management focus, like why are they trying to build a phone? Maybe, but we don't know what's going on inside of Anthropic. Maybe they
yeah.
just haven't announced the fact that they're building a car or like we don't know that, right?
I mean, it feels very unlikely, but you know, maybe what they should do at OpenAI is maybe like split the company, like just like do one that does just like Anthropic, okay, like just do OpenAI that just does like Anthropic, which is focus on building really good model and good product for people who want to do AI, and then put all the craziness into something else.
Well, that's what Google
But
did. That's what Google did. Google was like,
okay,
they put it into the thing called oh God, what do they call it? They had all the moonshots that they were in, all the
okay,
silliness, right? They took it out and put it into another
okay.
subsidiary.
Okay, perfect. So if I were like at OpenAI right now, I would advise them to do that. Do the phone on something else. Put a CEO who is not Sam Altman to do that. Acquire OpenClaw, the finance app, TBPN, all of this
Yeah,
crazy stuff that
yeah, yeah,
just take the discussion away from the core, more important stuff, which is how you going to build good AI.
yeah, yeah.
All the crazy things, put them onto something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this we should do that.
So Google did this through something called Google X. I want to make another
Okay. Okay.
I want to make another comparison if you don't mind, Martin.
Please go ahead.
So on Monday's show for ATP Insights, right? Last Monday, no, this week's Monday, this Friday today, right? On the Monday show, I talked about how GoTo, right? So the
Okay. Yeah.
combination of Gojek and Tokopedia reported their first profit.
Okay.
It was a big deal. And I knew kind of when that story came out, I'm like, if I wait like just the right amount of time on my Thursday show, I'm sure I'll be able to talk about Grab's profit.
Okay.
And I made and I did, because I made the comparison between, I said like GoTo and Grab are like Anthropic and OpenAI. It's like, you have profits, we have profits too.
Yes, we
You have
do.
Mythos, we've got a cyber model. What are you guys? And our model's better than yours. And they're like, we've got dogs, you've got, you know what I mean? Like it's just this back and forth between the two of them.
Yeah, it's true.
And I spent like the first couple minutes just talking about the fact that the conversation and the relationship that's happening in the AI space is no different than what's happening in the ride hailing and super app space. And yet it gets more attention because that's sexy today. But 5 years ago, the super app thing was sexy in Asia, at least, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
But the way they interact with each other,
It's very similar.
very similar, if not exactly the same. And you could argue again, one company's management, and I'm not going to say whether it's the AI stuff or the ride hailing and super app stuff. One company's management's way more focused. The other one is trying to do like all these different little things. And to be fair, the profitability from the GoTo companies, those GoTo group, right? Again, terrible name for the name of this company, right? But most of the money they're making came from their financial services. They have an embedded fintech inside that company, and that's where they're making most of their money. And Grab has not focused as much on their fintech business, so that's lagging in relation to this. But what's
Okay.
happening here between OpenAI and Anthropic is, again, all joking aside, you know, you release 4.7, you release Mythos, or at least hint about it. We released 5.5-Cyber. You know, you raised $122 billion at an $852 billion valuation. We raised $50 billion at a $900 billion valuation. We're just going to keep going back and forth.
Yeah.
But I think the clear message here that you and I are trying to get out for this conversation is that at the end of the day, the tech teams in both of these companies are elite.
Yeah, they are elites. Yep.
Right? Because Sequoia didn't interview the guy who built Codex.
Nope.
But my guess is and you can corroborate this or argue with me about this on this, but Codex is really good as well.
Yeah, when I speak to people who use AI, like agentic AI for coding workflows, right? And I want to know what they do, what they use, and all of that. I see that there are two sides of it, and like there's like really 50% of people who use Claude and 50% of people who use Codex.
Right.
And the people who use either solution, I've tried both, and they prefer either Claude or Codex. So it's not like they use Codex by default because they don't have access to Claude or whatever. No, 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 no. People have tried both, and some people prefer Claude and some people prefer Codex. And
Right.
then when I ask people why, like why do you prefer this one?
Right.
Often they don't know. It's just a feeling, it just feels better for them. So maybe there's a part of it that is just like just like how you feel with the model, how you think you understand yourself, or how you can work with it and you understand each other in the workflow. you,
Mm.
you see, like some people prefer Mac or Windows because just like they maybe
So
understand the platform
I was
better,
gonna say
right?
the same thing. Like, I remember bringing an iPhone onto the trading desk one day, and one of the IT guys came over and said, he just like scoffed at me. He's like, "Pfft, Android is way better. And I'm like, tell me why. Because I'm not religious about anything.
Yeah,
I just
yeah, yeah,
liked the iPhone. He was like,
yeah.
"Pfft." And it's the same thing today,
Similar. Mm,
20 years later, 18 years later, where people are like, Codex way better. And you're like,
exactly. Why?
why? I
I
don't know.
just
I just
feel
think so.
better, right? Exactly. That's it.
Sorry, I've got a meeting at 11. I can't talk about it, but it's definitely better kind of thing.
But yeah, but so that's why like there is definitely a massive user base in both, right? And as we talked about like a couple of episodes ago, like as of a few months ago, OpenAI had more enterprises using Codex than Anthropic had enterprises using Claude, right? So it
Exactly.
was even like the number one enterprise offering, right? So now maybe it has changed as of today because once again the directionality was completely different. So I think
Yep.
OpenAI was more like plateauing where Anthropic is just like skyrocketing. So so yeah, no, it's I think it's really really good, and I think OpenAI needs to shift the narrative towards product. We need to see more of that and less of crazy things at OpenAI.
Exactly. And just one last thing before we
Mm,
say goodbye to everybody, right? Again, the strategy here is to roll out these cybersecurity models and do the same thing that they've done in the PE space, both for OpenAI and for
mm,
Anthropic, and that is to
yep.
give it to people that are in the cybersecurity space and use them as the distribution mechanism for these frontier cyber models. I just
Mm.
love. I can't stop thinking about this, Martin.
Yeah, no, it's good. Huh? It's really good. Huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's really good. Let's see. I mean, I'm always like a little bit, careful about how great these models are, how capable
Same,
they
same, same.
are, how
Yeah,
dangerous they are. I don't know, right? Like once again, there's always the marketing angle to that, the sales angle to that. We never really know exactly what's going on.
mhm.
But plus that also like we remember that GPT-2 was already very dangerous, right? You remember it was like too dangerous
To release.
to be released. GPT-2, right? So
Mm.
it's-
Can I make a point about this danger thing? Because I saw something on X today that I thought was really interesting.
yeah.
I'm not sure if it was Jensen Huang who was saying it or somebody else, but the point that they were making was it was probably true because somebody was making the case that as these models get better and stronger, they get more and more dangerous. And intuitively, it sounds like that's true.
Mhm.
But if you think about it a little bit deeper, it was probably more dangerous for GPT-2 than GPT 5.5. And the reason why is because it was still super confident, but it made way more mistakes.
Yep. Hmm.
So in that sense, it was much more dangerous because the output was
Hmm.
still, it still believed itself that the output was right,
But it was wrong.
but it was wrong. And the more the models get developed, they still are still probabilistic.
Hmm.
For sure. They're not deterministic. We understand that. But the models themselves are getting so much better, factors better, that they're less dangerous, is the argument that somebody was making online today.
Yeah. Okay.
Something to think about.
Okay. But like the coding capacity, like the capabilities of like actually doing something that works, which means understanding the code base, understanding like the function and what it does and all of this,
Yeah.
is much, 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 much better
Oh, for sure.
today, right? So,
Way better.
and as we always say, like there is no exploit basically. It doesn't exist. You don't breach into a code and boom, all of a sudden you are in. No, that's not the way it works. There is something that there is a breach inside the code that just wait to be discovered, right? And so
Yeah.
anyone can find it, right? If you know it's on this file at line 224, anyone can see it. The only difference here is that the scale of checking all the files and all the line of code, the scale of that amount of work is just so huge that it was not humanly possible to do it before. So it was a lot of bugs and a lot of backdoors, a lot of things that were just here waiting for somebody to see them, right?
Right.
But now, thanks to AI, because they can just go through code, go through files much faster, and they understand what's going on in the code much better as well. Now they're able to say, okay, this thing on line 224, that's a backdoor, and people can use this to exploit your software, right?
So yeah. So do you find it interesting, Martin? Remember when Mythos came out or was like introduced, that they said it was way too dangerous, and that, you know, one of the examples that they gave was that they found a vulnerability that had been there for 27 years, but no human had ever been able to find it before, and that's
Yeah.
why it was so dangerous and scary. But
Nice.
I just commented that like 5.5 by GPT 5.5 Cyber is actually better than Mythos in finding this stuff. No one's saying like how scary and dangerous it is. But
Yes.
nobody. I've read a bunch of stuff about it today. I didn't read a single line that said like, "Uh-oh, this is really dangerous and the government has to regulate," like all this other noise that was around a month ago.
It's Anthropic and Martin playbook, Michael.
I
They
know.
are
That's why I want to point that
way
out,
better.
because
Yeah, no,
they're
that's a
so
good
good
point.
at
That's a
this.
good point. They are really good at that. That's why we also have to be careful, right? Like we talked about our own bias earlier, right? Like this is another way to be biased, right? Like
Exactly.
if you like you know like the confirmation bias, when this investor invested into this startup, or for sure it's going to be a hit, right?
Way better.
It's going to be like for sure, like these guys, they know what they're doing. They have 20 years of experience. They invested into Stripe and PayPal and also Shopify. If they invest into this new startup, for sure it's going to work, right, Michael?
Right.
Like that's a no-brainer, right? Like, I mean, in the tech bubble, that's the obvious example of like, okay, it's obviously not the case, but there's plenty of other example in our daily life where we tend to confirm, right? We tend to try to
Sure.
confirm when
It's
we
a
see
natural
these
human
type of
thing.
things.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
naturally human thing, and so that's why, like, from a marketing standpoint, when you are a marketer, you want to take advantage of that, right? Like you want to say, you are going to believe my story. Perfect. That's what I want,
Martin,
right?
we should do this about our shows. Tomorrow's show is going to be so dangerous.
Exactly. It's too
We should
dangerous to
release it.
watch. We, we are going to do
Put on your sunglasses. This is going to be way too dangerous to watch.
Yeah, we are going to do it, Michael, with a hood and sunglasses and everything,
This
because
limited
the
release
level of
only.
information we are going to
Too
release
high.
is so dangerous that we may have
I don't want people to know
problem,
who's giving out this information. Too scary.
Exactly. It's Yep, we are going to be releasing way too interesting facts and analysis to hurt so many people.
How good is that?
But yeah, that's a human thing, right? And unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, depends.
Yeah, yeah.
But we are not evolving that much, right? Like, so the
Not really.
same marketing tactics, that's just works, right? And
We always do, yeah.
just keep working all the time. But yeah, so that's why we have to be always very careful about this. But it doesn't mean that the models are not getting better and they are not good and they can't do crazy cool stuff, right? No. It's true that today, since it's especially 6 months ago, the models are getting so good that we can deploy them into doing new things, and that's why we see the growth that we are seeing right now.
Exactly. Okay.
And it's just beginning, by the way. I'm sure it's doing. It's not sure. It's like it's just going to get better. It's just going to get better.
Imagine what like Mythos 2 is going to be like, or
GPT-7
version 7.
Yeah, no,
it's just going to be insanity.
It's just getting better and better and better. Yeah. So it's also, once again, the directionality is really interesting here.
Exactly. Okay, dude. That's it today for AGTP Daily. We didn't miss anything, did we?
Nope, I think we talked about all the topics, Michael. All good.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. As usual, give us a thumbs up on today's video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help us out and follow us on all of our socials. Follow us on the socials. What are we doing? Follow us on X, follow us on Instagram, follow us on LinkedIn. Let us know in the comments if there's anything you'd like us to discuss. Ask us questions. We'll read those questions back on the show and give you an answer. We record every day at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Today's Friday. We'll be back on Monday at 11 a.m. That is Martin Runfort. My name is Michael Waits. Bye for now.
Bye bye, everyone. See you on Monday.